Welcome back to What's the Vibe with Katie and Amy. That felt too short. What do I normally say?
I mean, I feel like that's pretty much it.
Okay. I have no updates. You have no updates. We're both probably just lethargic from the amounts of food we ate yesterday.
Soon. I know. Have you had leftovers today?
No. Well, okay. So, remember those pecans that you left? I smashed every one of those for breakfast. And then Olivia left her tray upstairs, so I ate some. I ate some cheese ball. I had some Sprite.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm definitely keeping, trying to keep bulking up. I stayed with it. Did you have leftovers today?
No, we didn't bring that many leftovers home. Dang. And I almost went in there and ate it, but I already told Jacob he could have them when he got home from work. So I had some candied pecans as well.
Those were good.
And that's pretty much it.
Man, I'd be starving. What's your vibe? What's the vibe this week?
The vibe this week. Just buckle in because it's going to be a long one.
Okay, good.
The vibe this week is advocates. The vibe is women. The vibe is justice. And kind of like your story a couple weeks ago, twists and turns and surprising just elements throughout my entire story.
Statements. Watch all the way through this week, everyone.
That's right. And every other week.
Go back and rewatch.
That's right. And, excuse me, I think I've already told you that I have never done so much research on one story in the whole almost year that this podcast has been going.
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
So I have a lot of details.
Okay.
So I'm going to start by telling you about the Gilbert family, Mary Gilbert. And I asked you last week or the week before if you knew who she was, and you said no. Mm-hmm. But once I start telling this story, you tell me if you know her.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So Mary is kind of complicated. I love her and I don't. So you'll have to let me know what you think of her. She grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and would go on to have 4 daughters. Shannan, Sherry, Sarah, and Stevie.
Okay. All 4 girls. Okay.
All 4 girls. After the 3 oldest girls were born, Mary would take them and move from Lancaster, Pennsylvania to upstate New York to kind of get away from their father. He was really struggling with addiction, and she just wanted a better life and opportunity for her kids. Mary and almost every single woman in this story struggles a lot with poverty, abusive relationships, having trouble keeping a job. So she did have it really difficult as a mother and just as a person trying to survive.
Yeah.
After she moved to Lancaster, she would meet a man and have her 4th daughter named Stevie. This guy was very abusive. I couldn't find his name anywhere. It just kept saying unnamed man.
Unnamed abuser.
Unnamed abuser.
Just the way I love my abusers.
To be
anonymous.
Unnamed. So he was very abusive towards not only Mary, but the kids too. And would end up being arrested for domestic violence, and all of her children would get taken away from her.
Oh, no. Because he was beating her?
Because she was not, yes.
Oh, wow.
He was beating her and the children, I think. Oh. And I think that people think she wasn't doing enough to help her children. So a couple of years goes by, and 3 out of her 4 kids return. One child does stay in the foster system, and that is Shannan, her oldest daughter. And I want to tell you, the story is going to primarily be about Shannan.
Oh, okay.
But Mary has a really big a really big part of the story, kind of like Johnny Gosh's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And her sisters kind of do too, but Shannan is the main figure of the story. So Shannan was born in 1986 and was 5 years old when they moved to New York. When she got older, she would start suffering from mood swings, binging and purging, depression, and just had a lot of like mental illness that she struggled with. And her mom did as well, and some of her siblings. But because of those experiences that she was having, her mom thought it was very hard to parent her and that she was a very difficult child. So that's why a lot of people think that she didn't really try very hard to get Shannan back because she knew she was such a difficult child. Even though she was in foster care, she was really smart. She loved being the center of attention. She was always performing in school plays, and she graduated early at the age of 16. When she graduated, she would move in with her grandmother and enroll in nursing classes. And as she got even older and older, she would kind of be like her mom, to where she wouldn't keep just one job. So she worked at a hotel. I have a hotel, Applebee's, a senior center, a secretary at a school, and she was just bored. Like none of them satisfied her. Okay. Her dream was to become an aspiring singer and author. Her inspiration was Mariah Carey.
Aww.
And she would, even after she was an adult, go on to like try to find different auditions in New York to, like, she really wanted to get her start.
I wonder if she was a good singer.
Her family says that she was.
Okay.
In 2007, at the age of 21, Shannan moved to New Jersey to live with her boyfriend. When she was living with her boyfriend, she would begin working as an escort. Okay. Shannan sounding familiar at all?
Yes. Is Shannan biracial?
She could be, but I have no idea.
Okay.
I say could be based on pictures that I've seen of her.
Okay.
So when she was working as an escort, she would work with different companies, but then also post her services on Craigslist. She would also hire a driver by the name of Michael, and it would just be the two of them, and they would split money.
Okay.
That was 2007.
Okay.
In 2010, Shannan's still living in New Jersey, and she still has the same job, still with her same boyfriend, but now she's going to school to become an author. So she's just doing this escort work to pay her way through. She's just found something that she doesn't hate.
You can make a lot of money.
And you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, there's a book about Shannan's story, and I'll tell you more about that at the end, but I was doing some research with parts of the book, and they were making $1,000 a night. I know. I was like, what? I didn't know you made that kind of money.
There's a market for women of a certain age.
I mean, I think as long as
I'll be like lots of experience.
Okay, yes.
They'll be like, that's a lie.
So I want to tell you about May 1st, 2010. This is where Shannan's story kind of really took off. So Shannan is at a client's house, and Michael is waiting outside, and she comes out to leave, and he says, we've gotten a phone call, and somebody wants to hire you for your services, and at this time it's around midnight. So she says, okay, let's go. This man by the name of Joseph Brewer requested her services in Oak Beach, Long Island. So I have no idea how far or the geography of New York,
I don't either.
It's said to be like a very upscale community.
Okay.
Shannan really needed money to be able to buy her mom a birthday gift. So she was like, yes, let's go to this guy's house and then we'll go home for the night. So they get to Joseph's house and Shannan goes inside and Michael stays in the vehicle. And I read conflicting things. Some say he left. Some say he just hung out in the car.
Okay.
But a couple hours goes by and it's now 4:30 in the morning when Joseph comes outside and comes up to Michael and says, you need to get Shannan out of my house. She's acting crazy. She's on the phone with 911. I don't know what's happening to her. And Michael's just really confused. Like, what's going on?
Right.
What even happened in there? And Joseph is just like, get her out. That's all I care about. Just get her out. The 911 phone call that Shannan was on went on for 23 minutes. And I listened to part of it earlier. It was sealed for the past 13 years. I think they released it this year.
Whoa.
But it's very sad. You can hear her talking with the dispatcher, and she's saying things like, they're trying to kill me. Help me. Help me. They're trying to kill me. And the dispatcher's just like, where are you at?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me get somebody to, but I need to know where you're at. Well, it's 2010. They didn't use GPS on their phones like we do now.
Right.
Even though that was just 13 years ago.
Man. And she probably didn't even remember the address.
She didn't remember she wasn't the one driving.
Yeah.
She didn't know. All she knows is that she's in Long Island. So now she's running. She leaves out of the house and she is just running from this man's house. And you can hear her like yelling in the call to the people behind her. Like, what do you want from me? What are you going to do to me? Like all of these different things. She starts knocking on people's doors. And this one man named Gus opens the door and is asking her, like, what's wrong? Like, can I help you? And she just won't stop screaming, help me, help me, help me. So he tells her to come inside and to, like, sit down, calm down, like, pull yourself together. And when he does, or when she comes inside, he calls the police. And he says, I just want you to know the police are on their way. Everything's going to be okay. And that panics her. And she takes off. Well, now Michael, Shannan's driver, is driving up and down the road. And Gus said that he would watch him drive just a little bit and like stop and look around like he was looking for her. Mm-hmm. Well, at the same time he was watching Michael drive up and down, he noticed in his yard he had a boat that Shannan was hiding underneath. Mm-hmm. And when he looked at that in that direction to see Shannan looked at him and they locked eyes. And I think it scared her again and she took off. So she's clearly scared of either something that's gone on in that house. Right. Or her driver or both. Right. Because why wouldn't she just run right back to the car?
Right. I have so many questions.
Excuse me. Now she is running just on the road in front of other neighbors' houses and she's knocking on doors again. One woman called the police and said, there's a woman knocking on my door. She's yelling, help me, but I'm scared to open it. Like, I don't. Right. I mean, I would be scared too.
Me too.
So, because the neighbors are finally calling the police, now the dispatchers are able to get an idea of where Shannan is located. But in the meantime, the call that Shannan was on for 911 has now been transferred to the state police to try to see if they can figure out where she was calling from. When she heard Barbara calling the police, she took off from their house again. And now she's just running. She's not even stopping in any neighbor's house. She is running towards, so the way I saw a little bit of a map of these houses. So it's like houses and then like a swampy area and then a road. And then it's the ocean. Like they are that close to the ocean. Okay. So she starts running towards like the swampy area. and then the call cuts off, and she's just gone.
Oh my gosh.
So the police finally arrive about an hour later.
Jeez, I don't even think New York's that big.
No!
What the hell took so long?
And by then, they can't find Shannan. They can't find Michael, her driver. And everything kind of in the area seems to have calmed down, so they figured they left together. And they just go home. Meanwhile, Shannan is still missing. So 2 days goes by.
Okay.
And Shannon's boyfriend calls her sister and says, she hasn't come home. I can't get in touch with her. I don't know what to do. Like, have you heard from her? Anything. And they know what she was doing for a living and automatically just had this fear that something had gone wrong. So they file a missing persons report. Well, days go by. They still don't hear from Shannan. They still don't hear any...
Didn't Shannan have a boyfriend too?
Yeah, Shannon's boyfriend is the one that called the police.
He called, okay.
Or called her family.
Okay.
So once it's been like 4 or 5 days, the family decides to go from where they're living in New York down to Oak Beach, where she was last seen, and just start looking for her themselves. They get there. They go door to door. They're just knocking on every person's door. Have you seen my sister? They're handing out flyers. Just anybody that would stop and look at them or say a word to them, they would say, do you know who Shannan is? Have you seen her? Time went on and on. Nothing happened. So Mary becomes a very big, like, vocal point for Shannan. She goes directly to the police, and she's in there every day, hanging up a new flyer, asking for any updates, anything that she can do to get any information. And she said that because Shannan worked as an escort, the police they're just throwaway, I think is the word that they used. Mm-hmm. So it just wasn't important to them, which is very sad.
Even when you've got her mother right there. She's important to me.
Right.
Like, help me.
Something kind of strange, though, happened. I think I'm not really sure the exact timeline, whether they went to New York to find Shannan or this happened a couple of days before, but Mary, her mom, gets a phone call. And the guy on the other end of the phone says that his name is Dr. Peter Hackett, and he's seen Shannan. Not too long ago, he saw her. He tells Mary, I run a halfway house.
Okay.
I help people in need, and I saw Shannan just a couple days ago, but I haven't heard from her. Like, I just wanted to reach out to you guys. And just so you have a little bit of information about what this Dr. Hackett is like, or who he is he was the emergency room surgeon in the area and the head of the local ER for several years. He also owned a police radio, and anytime he heard like an accident or like a fire or anything on the radio, he would get in his car and go to the scene to see if he could be any help.
Hobby.
That is his hobby.
That's creepy hobby.
Just being in people's business.
Oh my gosh.
So now he's calling Mary and he's like...
Oh, putting himself in her business.
Exactly. So when Mary gets this call and she's telling her other daughters about it, Shannon's sisters say, okay, we're going to go meet Dr. Hackett then.
Okay.
And they get in the car and they go to Dr. Hackett's house.
Somebody in my eye.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You keep going. We're going
out. They go to Dr. Hackett's house and they ask him about...
They go to his house?
Yes.
Okay.
They ask him about this phone call and about Shannan, and you know what he says? I've never talked to your mother a day in my life. I don't even know who you guys. Who is Shannan? What are you talking about?
What the hell? So was it him or somebody impersonating him?
No, it was him.
Oh, it was him.
He did call.
What the hell?
Later, his story would change and then it would go back. Eventually, he wrote letters to 48 Hours, which you can find. I did read them. And it's basically just him saying that he knew Shannan's friends and they asked him to call Mary and check in and let them know that Shannan's been missing. He hasn't heard from them. See if she has heard from them. Whatever. I'm not buying it either. After Mary reported the phone call to the police, they said, this guy just likes to have his nose in everybody's business. This is the norm for him. He's not a suspect. What? No.
Weird. Just weird, though.
Right. So then they're still left with nothing. Now, this sudden suspect that they thought they had, but they don't actually.
Right.
Shannan's still missing. They don't have any leads. They did track down the driver and the client's house, the client whose house she was at, and they were both cleared almost instantly.
I wonder if they were doing some drugs or something in there.
In the house?
Yeah, with her client. Because how did she arrive fine, stay several hours, and then get into this panic mode?
I have so many theories.
Yeah.
I have thought that could be one. Her boyfriend did say, I read an article that said she wasn't taking like her medication. I'm not sure exactly what she was on, but something for her mental health.
Yeah.
So that could have had something to do with it. Or she truly could have been fearing for her life for a legitimate reason.
I wonder. Okay.
I have more.
Okay.
I have a lot more.
Okay.
So still day after day, and Mary is the biggest advocate. She is going in still day after day, wanting them to not forget that Shannan is a person.
Yeah.
It took a month before the police were able to connect the missing persons report to the 911 phone call Shannan made, because they were required to do the missing persons report in New Jersey where Shannan lives, even though she disappeared and was last seen in New York.
Oh, jeez.
They did have an FBI and a psychiatrist analyze the 911 phone call to see if they could get any type of lead or clue or anything to investigate. And really the sum of it, once they were done, was Shannan was not consistent. They said was not consistent with her being the victim of violence or a violent offender. Her phone call. How can they say that when she's literally on the phone saying they're trying to kill me?
Right. That doesn't make sense. Because even if she wasn't in real danger, she thought she was.
Right.
So how could they say that?
And I mean, only her and whoever else was directly there knows whether or not she was in danger. They're just assuming that based off of the fear in her voice.
We need more details of what was going on in that house that led up to this.
I know. So that was... So Shannan went missing May 1st. Dr. Hackett called Mary on May 3rd. And then it was a month later they connected the phone call to the missing persons report.
Okay.
7 more months go by. Shannan's still missing. The police have no new leads. Nothing. Now the police start searching that swampy area where she was last seen. Why did it take 7 months for them to do that?
I'm surprised Mom didn't go out there and walk it.
Thank you.
Huh.
When they were out searching, they were like a grid search. Little area by little area. planning to do the entire area. As they were going, they got a little bit in and they found remains.
Oh no.
So they thought it's Shannan.
Yeah, they found Shannan.
But they did not.
Oh my gosh.
They found the remains of another missing woman, 24-year-old Melissa Bartholomew. Melissa had been missing for over a year and a half and was last seen heading to Manhattan to meet a client. She was also an escort.
Oh no, this is getting suspicious now.
Yes, it is.
I mean, a running distance from this John's house.
Right.
Joseph was his name.
It should have been John.
Should have been John.
I do have just a little bit of information about Melissa. Melissa's family did say that they contacted the police that they went the night she went missing, but just like Shannan's family said, they were just dismissed. They said that the police told her family that she was just a young adult out living her life. She didn't want to be found, so there was nothing that they could do for her. Okay. So now we have a missing woman and the remains of another woman.
Yeah.
And they keep the search going, so they're still doing that grid search.
Okay. Don't tell me they find another body.
Do you want to guess what happens next?
They find another body.
They find the remains of 3 other women.
Oh my gosh, 3 other women.
3 other women, Amy. These women would go on to be known as the Gilgo 4.
Is that the name of the swamp or something?
The beach. It's the Gilgo Beach.
Okay.
So I want to tell you just a little bit about these women because I think they're just as important as Shannan.
Oh, yes.
So there was 25-year-old Maureen Brainerd Barnes, who was last seen July 6th of 2007. This is 2010. Taking a train from Connecticut to Manhattan. She left behind 2 children. She was also an escort, and calls for help to the police by her family were also ignored. There was 22-year-old Megan Waterman, who was last seen in June of 2010 after Shannan went missing. She was boarding a New York-bound bus with her pimp. She left behind a 3-year-old daughter.
Oh.
And then lastly...
Did her pimp make it to his destination?
He did.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right. And then lastly, 27-year-old Amber Costello, who was last seen September of 2010, leaving her home to meet a client. Something to note that I put in here is all of these women had similar heights and builds. So they all, one was blonde, one was brunette, but they were all, I think, 4'11".
What?
Like really skinny.
Where do you find this? Tiny, tiny women.
On Craigslist, apparently.
Oh, 4'11".
Okay. Just to recap a little bit, we have the remains of 4 escorts being found in Gilgo Beach, and Shannan, who is still missing, and a weird doctor making calls.
Yeah.
But no answers to anything. So now it is April 2011. So it's been 4 months. Now that some time has passed, Mary is like pulling all of the families of those other missing women that have been found together. And now they're all using their voices to the police.
Okay.
Like, find out what's happened. Where is Shannan still? Who did this to our kids?
Good.
Like,
That was smart.
yes. They're doing tons of news conferences. You could probably find some online. I didn't watch or listen to any of them. They're hanging flyers. They're just still doing whatever they can. The police have no further leads, or so they say. And they go back to where they left off with the search, and they start back up again. They continue.
In the swamp.
In the swamp.
Okay.
Yes.
No, oh my gosh, they find her now this time, the second time through.
No, they don't, Amy.
Ah.
So now they're moving along again, and they find the partially dismembered remains of 3 women, an Asian man, and a toddler.
What?
Bet you didn't see that one coming, did you?
This swamp sounds horrible. I don't live in this neighborhood.
Right? So I'm going to leave out a lot of details, and I'll tell you at the end, like if you want to do more research, where you can go to find them. Because I wanted to tell the story about Shannan's family, but I can't. I can't not share this part. The first set of remains that they found belonged to a woman by the name of Jessica Taylor. Jessica's initial remains, because remember these remains have been dismembered, were found 7 years prior in July of 2003, 50 miles away in Manorville, New York.
Oh my gosh. So they've got a maniac out here cutting women apart and dropping their body parts in different areas.
Yes. She was 20 years old at the time and also an escort.
Baby.
Valerie Mack was 24 years old at the time she went missing in early 2000. Just like Jessica, in the same year she went missing, also in Manorville, her torso was discovered. At Gilgo Beach, they found her head, hands, and feet.
He didn't even keep it, like, organized.
No.
Like,
well, I think he thinks he was doing something, because I did read that he would like try to mutilate their tattoos to keep them. So he thinks he was doing something.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She sadly went unidentified until 2020.
Oh, wow.
And was ID'd through forensic genealogy. Then there was an Asian male found, and I found there was little known about this person. They were estimated to be between the ages of 17 and 23, most likely died 10 years earlier in the year 2000, and were found wearing women clothing and makeup, making police assume that they were transgender.
Okay.
The toddler that they found has also not been identified yet. The police believe she was around 2 years old at the time of her death. They also think that she may have been related to another woman that was found in the Manorville area where some of the other remains were found. They also found remains of 2 other women I couldn't find information on. Still no Shannan.
Why is this toddler there? Because it sounds like everybody else was likely an escort being dumped there. Even that young Asian person.
Right.
So, unless, I don't know. Now I'm just making up theories, but maybe like the client went to her house and the baby was asleep.
Could be.
And then maybe he just had to kill him. He had to.
He didn't have a choice.
Yeah, there were no other options.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. So now it's been 10 months that Shannan's been missing. We have
bodies piling
10 bodies.
Oh my god.
That have been found. They did note that 8 of the bodies, had signs of either being strangled or suffocated. Still no answers. You want me to stop there?
No. Give me some answers.
Just kidding.
That was an abrupt ending.
The end. So now we are in December of 2011. Mm-hmm. So it's been a year and a half. Shannan's name is still a hot topic around the police station because of her mother, but the police are really just
they're doing the least.
Basically. They decide to go back out to the Gilgo Beach area and do another search.
They're like, we've got nothing else, and this keeps producing stuff.
We better go back.
Golly.
And as they're searching, they're going down and down. At first, they find a cell phone, and it belongs to Shannan. So we're getting somewhere.
Okay.
Then they go down a little further, and they find a pair of jeans that belong to Shannan.
Okay.
And then they're searching further, and they find a wallet, or as they stated, a pocketbook that belongs to Shannan.
It was in 2010. They were called pocketbooks.
Fair enough. A quarter mile away, they find Shannan deceased, face down, and I'm gonna say the swamp. I'm gonna say the marsh.
Okay, the marsh.
1 year to date from the initial discovery of the Gilgo 4. They found her 1 year
So
later.
are they just missing her?
No, I don't think so. Because I looked at a map several times. I'm not going to try to explain it. You look at a map later.
Okay.
I'll try to put one up here. But no, I did see like the client's house was here, and then it was like the Gilgo 4 right in a row, and then a little bit way down. This is a quarter mile away.
Okay.
They found Shannan. So
it's like enough. They didn't search the whole thing top to bottom the initial time.
Right. They were doing like a grid search. They were doing here. Once they knew they had searched this entire area, then they were going here.
Okay.
Like for anything that they could find. So now they found Shannan. Mary is quoted as saying, direct quote, because I love one of those. They say she's at rest now, but she's not. She'll never be at rest until I complete the fight and give her justice. So Mary they found her. She's grateful, but that's not enough for her. She wants to know what happened. So now it's been 5 months, and it's May 1st, 2 years to the day that Shannan went missing.
Okay.
From the day she made that phone call. Police finally release her official cause of death, classified as undetermined.
Oh, geez. Why even release it?
And Mary was just more frustrated than ever. She knew in her mind that Shannan was murdered, and that they can't just say undetermined. The police say that the way they imagine it is it's 4 a.m, so it's pitch black outside, and she's running, and she's fearful, and she's really hyped up, and maybe she's on drugs, maybe she's not taking her medication, and she's running, and she's getting disoriented, and she starts dropping her things as she's running along.
Her pants
start getting weighed down by the water. Okay. And eventually she just runs herself to death is basically what they're saying.
I mean, I have felt like I was running myself to death, but I don't think that's a real thing.
No, I don't think so either. So the police say they're going to continue to investigate, but realistically, nothing is really happening. So November of 2012. So just 6 months later, after they released that cause of death, Mary is really frustrated that the investigation is going nowhere. So she hires her own family lawyer, and they sue Dr. Hackett for wrongful death.
Dr. Hackett?
Dr. Hackett that made the phone call. Because they believe, and I could kind of get on board with this. They believe that he did meet Shannan. How else would he get their phone number?
Okay, yes.
And he's a doctor. His neighbors have said before, like he'll write him a prescription, like if they've got a cold, or like he'll practice medicine out of his house. Okay. Yes. So they believe she came to him. He invited her in. He gave her medication of some sort to help her calm down, and in turn caused her death. I think that makes sense. I almost question because she was at a client's house, came out to the car, and was told, we have a call for another client. I wonder if she was at Dr. Hackett's house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or I was thinking, because you said he has a scanner, did he know about the 911 call that night?
Maybe.
And then put himself in the right position. Okay, so we got a couple theories going here.
So they sue him, and I don't know if that case is still ongoing or not. I don't know. I should have researched that. I'm sorry. But I still have more. Don't think the story's over. So, just the next month, I have to tell you about this related yet unrelated incident that's happening. So, this is in Suffolk County. So, the Suffolk County Police Department Chief, James Burke, who helped manage and lead these investigations, is arrested.
For
sex
trafficking.
Mr. Burke had a duffel bag of adult toys and videos in his vehicle.
That's a crime?
It's not. But here's where the crime comes in. The area where he parked his car, there was a young man who suffered from drug addiction who would consistently break into vehicles. Well, he broke into the chief's vehicle, stole his duffel bag. The police chief followed him, arrested him, took him back to the police station to an interrogation room, and just beat the hell out of him.
No one takes my sex toys.
What?
Oh.
He was beating him. He was screaming at him. He was a heroin addict. And the police chief kept threatening to give him a hot shot.
Oh my God.
All over some toys and videos. That's a red flag.
That is a red flag. What was on those videos?
Right. It is later said that James Burke, the chief, is the reason that the FBI did not have more of a hand in the investigations. He specifically gave less attention to the cases of Shannan and Jessica, one of the women that were found.
Oh, man, that's scary.
Very scary.
Just like the police in, what state was Johnny in? Iowa?
Yes.
And
I know.
Police are involved.
I told you this
was
giving Johnny Gosh.
That's so scary.
There was also a sex worker by the name of Leanne who worked in the county that came forward stating that she met the chief at a party in the area where Shannan disappeared. So he's been going to parties where she may not have been, but she was near.
Right. We can put them in proximity of each other.
So we'll come back to the chief, but he did end up serving or being sentenced to 46 months in a federal prison for what he did to that thief. I mean, the man who just stole you should have just let him take it.
That's creepy.
It's now February of 2016.
Okay.
It's been 6 years since Shannan went missing and 5 since she's been found. Since James was arrested, the case really quieted down.
Wait, who's James?
James was the police chief.
Okay.
Sorry. Since the chief was arrested.
I was like, I miss James.
The case was really just kind of going cold. They still weren't really doing a whole lot. But Mary decided, I still know that her death was not undetermined, so she was going to hire her own forensic pathologist to do an independent exam of Shannan's body.
Oh my gosh.
They then did a press conference where the pathologist noted no indication of drowning because they thought, she was exhausted, disoriented, fell and drowned.
Ran herself to death.
Yeah.
Fell face first in a marsh.
Right. But instead did find that Shannan suffered injuries consistent with homicidal strangulation. Because of this, once they were able to present this to the police were like, oh, that's interesting. Let us do some digging. And said that they were going to reopen and dig more into the investigation. That's all I have about Shannan for right now.
Okay.
But I have a little bit more.
Okay.
I want to tell you, before I tell you what happens next, I want to tell you about Shannan's sister, Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah is Mary's third youngest daughter. Okay. So Sarah was 4 years younger than Shannan, and much like her sister and her mother, she also suffered from some mental illness, including depression and schizophrenia. When they were children, Sarah was sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend as a child. Once she was an early teen, her mom's boyfriend was gone, but she did end up getting pregnant at the age of 14 and having an abortion. At the age of 16, she dropped out of high school and moved in with her 22-year-old boyfriend, who was a drug dealer. The two of them had a son in 2009, just 1 year before Shannan went missing. Her boyfriend was arrested and served time for drugs, while Sarah and her son ended up in a domestic violence shelter. When Shannan went missing and as her case would progress, Sarah would struggle a lot mentally. She would really lean on her mom for help with her son. She didn't really have anybody else. And it wouldn't be too long before Mary just ended up having custody of him altogether. In 2013, Sarah was experiencing an episode when she was watching a music award show and just became 1,000% convinced that her and Shannan had written songs for famous people. Not long after that, she started having delusions and believing that the people she loved were being possessed by demons.
Mental health is crazy.
It's so crazy. In 2014, her mother and her sister were at her house when Sarah tried to attack her mom, believing that she was a demon. The police came, she was hospitalized, and quickly came home to then turn on her son.
Oh no.
Once they realized that she was having these same feelings about her child, they got her into a psychiatric center. She stayed at a treatment center for the remainder of the year, came home with a definitive diagnosis and medication, knowing how to handle and maintain her mental health. In 2016, Sarah would stop taking her medications and start experimenting with drugs, mostly ecstasy. The beginning of July, she overdosed and would shortly be placed in a coma to prevent self-harm. That was when they realized that she had stopped taking her meds. But what I want to tell you about Sarah, this is the part that I was like, I have to tell this story because this family has already been through so much.
Yes.
They've lost a daughter, or one has just disappeared, and then they find out that because of Shannan, they found all these other women.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's heavy.
Yeah. On July 23rd, 2016, Mary received a phone call from Sarah, who was just hysterical. She said she wanted help. She was hearing voices. She just wanted her mom to come and help her, just like she did before. When Mary got to the apartment, Sarah ambushed her. She stabbed her mom over 227 times.
I did not see this coming.
I did not either. And hit her over the head with a fire extinguisher several times.
Killed her.
Mary, who has done, she started out, not the best. I mean, she's got abusive people in her home. She's losing her children, but then she's still fighting for her children.
I feel like she was doing the best she could.
Yes.
And then at the end of her life, she was still going to try to help.
Right.
And that's what cost her life. That's terrible. But it also does make me think back more about Shannan hearing schizophrenia and knowing that could potentially run in families.
Right.
Was she having some sort of
an episode or something? Yeah, exactly.
A lot of questions.
Sarah was arrested and pleaded insanity. Neither of her sisters would go on to appear as a character witness, and she would be convicted to receive a 25-year sentence. I did read that they had trouble believing that she was mentally insane because the way that she had attacked her mom, it was very well planned.
Yeah.
So they thought that she did suffer from mental disorders or mental illness, but that she knew right from wrong and what she was doing in that moment. I'm almost finished.
That's crazy.
Because I know there's been like all these things happening.
Man, I can't take much more.
But in January of 2020, the NYPD had created a new task force to work on solving the cases of the Gilgo Four. They still maintain that Shannan's death is not related. They are insistent that it was accidental, that it had nothing to do with the rest. And that's they've pretty much stopped with Shannan. But in January 2020, they released a photograph of a black leather belt that they found at a crime scene, believing that it belonged to a suspect.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2023. Okay. Because you know I love to bring a story current. Oh. I'm going to tell you a little side note, and then I'll tell you the end. Okay. Side note. After being released from federal prison in 2018, the ex-chief of police.
Yeah, the perv.
Was arrested again.
Oh, this time. What for?
He was in a public park where he would expose himself and begin masturbating in front of people.
Oh, jeez.
So,
I need to know the psychology behind that, because
why would you,
sir? No one is interested in that.
Nobody.
Do that at home. No one wants. No, I've never been driving by the park and been like, it'd be great.
Oh, let me just stop real quick.
It'd be so cool if there was someone over there just pulling their pants down.
Yeah. And then to make it worse, when the cops got there, he was like trying to worm his way out of being arrested by being like, don't you know who I am? I'm the chief of police, or I worked with the department for so many years, blah, blah, blah. This is going to be so humiliating for me. Please don't arrest me.
It's my civil right to yank my chain wherever I want.
Exactly.
I put my time in here.
So, again, still makes me go back and think that
he's a weirdo.
A creep.
Oh. He's a world-class weirdo.
Yeah.
Thank you for that side note.
I did. I just wanted to include that. I felt like it didn't really go with the story, but it was important.
Yeah, it was important. I needed to go off about that PSA that no one wants to see that.
Thank you. Okay, but for real, in July and August of 2023, this year, Amber Costello was one of the women that was found. Her PIMP gave a statement shortly after she went missing. So this was over 13 years ago. And he said that he saw a Chevy Avalanche parked near her home.
They had made Chevy Avalanches back then?
In 2010? Yeah.
Oh, 2000. Yeah. No, I thought they were newer than that.
Okay. Why did they sit on this information for 13 years?
Who drove a Chevy Avalanche, Katie?
The owner of the car, Rex Hewerman, an architect and a married father of two, was shortly later arrested in his Manhattan Midtown office after investigators matched DNA from pizza he threw outside to a hair that they found on burlap that one of the bodies was wrapped in.
Oh my goodness. Just this random guy that had nothing to do with the story before.
Right.
Wow.
They also were able to track his cell phones, because he had multiple, to the area. And
maybe he was a couponer.
Maybe. Something I didn't even tell you is that Melissa, the very first woman that was found, shortly after she went missing, her sister kept getting random phone calls that they couldn't track, couldn't figure out who they were coming from. And the guy on the other end would be like, "Are you like your sister?
Oh.
How long has it been since you heard from her?" Until eventually one of the calls, he finally said, "I killed your sister, and you're never going to get me. You're never going to find me."
And it was him?
That was him.
He's a serial killer. Rex, what was his name?
Rex Heuermann. I'll text it to you.
Okay. Whoa, Rex.
So Rex has been charged with 3 murders out of the Gilgo 4 and is the prime suspect for the 4th. He has pled not guilty, and his next court date is set for February 2nd, 2024.
Wow.
But of course, a trial is probably way far out there.
We gotta follow along Rex's journey. He's on a journey.
He is.
He's on a different journey than I am.
Well, one thing about Rex, which we should keep doing some digging. I had already come up with my story. I had finalized everything. Before you got here, I was going through TikTok, like just trying to find more information about the case. And I found a story of a woman and her cop boyfriend, or he was an ex-cop or something, in the early 90s had went to a party. They were swingers. Okay. And at the party, they had heard of another party that was going on at Rex's house.
Oh.
So they went there. But side note, something I forgot to mention, was when they went to that party, the boyfriend decided to take an escort that was just recently released from prison or from jail. She wasn't in prison, but to swing with them. So then the 3 of them, the girlfriend, boyfriend, and the escort, went to Rex's house. And she said, as they were leaving, Rex and his wife were chasing this woman, this escort, out of the house, and she was naked, just like running out. I saw that, and then I also saw he's an architect. He was redoing his kitchen and had one of his colleagues come over, and she noticed that he had a locked room in his basement, and she was like, "What's up with this?" Like, they're friends, and be like, "You asking me?
Yeah, what are you doing with that?
What you got in there?" And he said, "Oh, it's just stocked full of guns. Don't worry about it." And like wouldn't let her go in there. So then some people were alleging that he was holding people in there, like at some point.
Well, that's why, not that, but it made me think back to, because when you said they were searching the swamp, you made it seem like they were doing every single inch thoroughly.
Yes.
And then they didn't find Shannan until the second or later search, like with somebody holding her.
Oh.
But they must have just
I
not
think they
gotten
just,
that far.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten that far.
Yeah, we need to know more about Rex and his wife. They're clearly sexual deviants.
Yes.
Like, hey, do what you want to do, but
don't kill people.
Don't kill people.
Stop there.
Yeah, let's draw the line at locking them in a room, chasing them around naked,
and killing them. So I told you there was a book. There's also a Netflix movie, I think. Yes, it is a movie by the same title. Both are called Lost Girls.
Okay.
And I told you I was listening to this book, and it does such a good job because it starts with, I think it tells the stories of the early, like, childhood stories of the 5 women, the 4 and Shannan, and it tells you about how they were raised, what struggles their parents faced.
Really humanizes everybody.
It really does. So I would highly recommend that. I haven't seen the Netflix special, but Dean Winters, do you know who that is? He played in Law & Order SVU. He was Mariska's boyfriend for a little while. He was also on, like, in SVU, like, the first 1 or 2 seasons.
What was his name?
I can't remember. Okay. And then Amy from The Office.
Amy? Oh, yeah.
She plays Mary.
Oh.
In the Netflix special.
Okay, so she's definitely biracial, right?
I don't know.
Which it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
But I had seen a little snip of it.
Okay, I thought when I was doing some digging, I realized this came out very shortly after Tiger King, in the middle of the pandemic when we were all stuck in our houses
watching documentaries.
So I wondered if maybe you had seen it, but I left out a ton of detail. So go research it.
It's impossible to tell every single thing. I mean, this has gone on for years and years and years.
I didn't even tell you that there was another man tied to the remains in Manorville.
A different man altogether.
A different man.
I mean, there could be between these sex parties or whatever. There could have been a ring or something.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So, I really tried to do Shannan some justice by telling her story, but when I was researching and was like, okay, Shannan, that's so sad. And then it's suddenly, there's a serial killer.
Yeah.
And then it's suddenly mysterious phone calls, police chief being arrested, her own mother being murdered by her own sister.
Oh my gosh. So,
yeah, that's all I got for you. That was a very long-winded story about the Lost Girls.
Wow. Well, I knew your vibe was intense. So I have a short vibe for you today. Okay. But it's still it'll make you go,
You know I love it.
But I was going to make this one a little bit longer, but then I knew I kind of had an out. But also, I couldn't really find a lot of backstory on these two people. So this might be a rabbit hole that I can interest you in.
I'm already intrigued, so yes. Okay.
So the vibe is mystery. The vibe is coincidence.
Oh.
The vibe is also got some water involved, too. Oh. So I'll tie it in with yours here a little bit. Okay, so these are two different news articles that I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you how they tie together.
Okay.
Officials have closed the case on the death of a New Jersey woman who went missing after leaving a bar in Bucks County in January. And this is all in New Jersey, too.
Oh, that's weird.
Isn't that crazy?
How do we do that?
I don't know. Her name was Sarah Majoras. And she was last seen leaving John and Peter's bar and restaurant in New Hope in Bucks County, where she worked. And she was walking home, and this was around 2 a.m. on January 26th. I'm sorry, I don't have the year.
That's okay.
Majoras was 39. She was last seen on a bridge surveillance camera, and hundreds of people helped search for her body. So she's a bartender. She gets off work at the bar, and she's walking home. And they end up finding her body in the water. Okay.
In New Jersey.
The Hunterdon County Medical Examiner completed his report on Monday, ruling that Majora's death was caused by accidental drowning.
How did she accidentally drown?
Well, it gets weirder.
Okay.
13 years earlier, a young man by the name of, let me find it here.
Okay.
David Anderson. He lost his life 13 years earlier in much the same way. He had left the same bar, after a night of playing. He was in a band and was walking home. People saw him walking across the bridge to get to home. And then he never made it. And then his body was found in the canal.
Down in the water?
Drowned in the water. The thing that connects these two people, Katie, is that at the time they both lived with the same person.
What?
It was...
I'm sorry, what?
Exactly. It was Majoras. What was her first name? So sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sarah Majoras.
Sarah, okay.
Okay, it was her boyfriend, and it was David Anderson's roommate.
Did Sarah know what happened to the roommate 13 years earlier?
That's a great question.
And where is the boyfriend now, or what did he have to say for himself? Nothing.
Nothing I cannot find. They're just ruling them a coincidence.
A coincidence.
They were going to share the house. They shared a house with a guy named Adam Baker.
And the
most basic name.
Right. Oh my gosh.
But isn't that crazy? How does your girlfriend and your roommate both leave the same bar
and walk into a river?
Walk the same path and walk into a river. Unless he met him at the bottom of the thing. I mean, but I can't find any information. Like, did he have insurance policies on these people? I don't think he did.
And the police, are nobody's suspicious of him?
Ruled him an accident.
No, that's how.
That's a big coincidence.
How can that be a coincidence? I've heard coincidences of some things. Like, have you ever heard the coincidences between the President John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln?
No.
Oh, I'll have to tell them to you sometime because there's a whole list of them. It's like one was shot leaving this, one was coming on his way to that, or something of the sort. But it's just like their lives were very full of coincidences.
Oh, that's creepy.
But that I wouldn't be roommates or live with that person.
Yeah, I don't think I could either.
No. Oh, no, that's scary. Yeah. I don't love that.
So I found a little something about it on TikTok, but not much.
Okay.
But yeah.
Let's try to research it and see if we can come up with something more. Anything else.
Maybe some of our listeners have heard of this.
Yes. Yeah. Alex Baker. But, okay.
So we know an Alex Baker. It's Adam Baker.
Adam Baker.
I was like, oh, that just dawned on me. I'm like, wait, that's not their name.
Like, another coincidence?
Another coincidence.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of What's the Vibe with Katie and Amy. Stick around for the next couple of episodes. We are nearing the end of season 2, so thanks for watching.